Nothing like pause recording. It says stop.
Good morning, everyone. We're just decided to start the broadcast. It's up to 10 or 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll also go ahead and maybe give a couple extra minutes just to make sure everybody has a chance to dial in. You know how these long dial-in numbers with the access pins can be. So know that you can't talk, but we've got a number of poll questions we're going to be releasing at the end of the webinar so that we don't jam up the presentation. It will be greatly appreciated if you guys could provide us some feedback there. You will be able to continue to hear us and enter questions based on what you saw during the presentation. It's just that you won't be able to see the screen. You'll only be looking at the poll questions as you field those. And we'll give you about maybe 30 seconds to a minute to answer each one of the poll questions. And I think we've limited that down to just 4 questions that we had of the group to get a better understanding of what our audience is interested in, because we've got a series of webinars we're going to be publishing on this topic, each one a little bit more granular within security, automation, and controls. We'd also welcome your feedback on any additional topics relative to security that you might be interested in, and we're going to provide some contact information at the end of the presentation where you can provide us any feedback in other topics or discussion that you'd like to see. And we certainly take a look at that and try to incorporate that into our future series of PeopleSoft Security Automation and Controls webinars. And the recording started.
Okay,
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Katrubis. I am Vice President of Sales Operations for ERP Analyst. We're going to be talking about security automation and controls today. And my colleague, Jay Chikara, who's our Program Director for Emerging Technologies, is going to be leading this up for the bulk of the technical part of the presentation.
Okay. Peter?
So about ERP analysts, the first thing that we want to talk about is our guiding principles, and it's embedded in our name. So empathy, we try to put ourselves in our customer's shoes and do unto others as we'd have them do unto us, and it's all about respect and treating each other well. Responsibility, we take great pride in our responsibility for our customers' systems and maintaining them and making sure the integrity and the return on investment that they have for their ERP systems is high. Passion, the one thing that consistently runs across all of the ERP employees is our passion. Each one of us in our own area of specialization shows passion and what they bring to the table, and they really enjoy their job. And I think that's the thing that I noticed in the company, that is the cohesive consistency across employee to employee and what makes us all gel as a family. Agility, we pride ourselves on the ability to come to market quickly and provide solutions for our customers, and we think that we have the ability to pivot quickly and bring speed to value. Founded in 1999, we're headquartered in Dublin, Ohio. We've got satellite offices in Florida, Nevada, and Texas. I'm broadcasting live from Florida today. We were Oracle Platinum Partner, and we specialize in Oracle Cloud, PeopleSoft, Business Intelligence, and Big Data. We've got over 500 of our own directly employed US-based consultants. We've completed over 1,500 projects in the US and Caribbean for PeopleSoft and BI and other technologies within the Oracle tech stack, and with 100% success rate. We've got over 250 PeopleSoft upgrades, and of those, 22 plus have been PeopleSoft 9.2 upgrades with over 100 upgrade support passes. We also have a large competency in Oracle BI and BI application. Okay, so when people ask us why ERPA, we have to talk about 4 things: people, process, technology, and expertise to start with. We have the largest PeopleSoft-centric workforce in the United States, with over 500 of our own directly employed PeopleSoft consultants. A portion of those are business intelligence and big data, but the bulk of our 500 employees that are here in the United States and deployed as consultants on our projects and as individual subject matter experts are PeopleSoft. We talk about process. We're CMMI Level 3 appraised and ISO 27001 and 9001 certified. What that translates to our customers is consistency and dedication to process, so that once we encounter an upgrade type project or building out fluid pages or handling security, we build processes around how we approach those different subjects and those different type of technical and functional aspects of PeopleSoft and Oracle. And then that way we can promise and have consistency in recreating that success for subsequent customers for similar initiatives. When we talk about technology at ERPA, it's got to be Oracle-centric or something within big data. So we only specialize in Oracle Cloud, PeopleSoft applications, business intelligence, and again, big data. We talk about experts. Our US-based employees have an average experience level of 10 years per individual and an average tenure with the company of 8 years. So we continue to drive that high level of expertise in our W-2 employee base. As a result, we've got a lot of exclusive ERPA project accelerated tools and intellectual property that we've built for our own internal projects and now often bundle up and offer out as services to our customers. And that's going to be part of the main discussion today around security as a service. Two other highlights to our services, among many things, is our managed hosting and our ability to take and lift and shift Oracle from an on-premise ecosystem into a cloud-hosted environment. And then our remote enterprise solutions team's expert capabilities to maintain those systems that are hosted in a managed services capacity. ERPA's services portfolio. We always start by talking about our managed projects. As an Oracle Platinum partner, we're specialized in PeopleSoft applications and Oracle database. We've also got, some qualifications within Oracle Cloud with HCM and finance and ERP Cloud. We can do full implementations for PeopleSoft. We can do upgrades, and we also do a number of module add-ons for our customers, wanting to enhance their existing PeopleSoft ecosystem. We also do People Tools upgrades as a part of managed projects. Then we look at consulting services. Having the largest PeopleSoft-centric US-based workforce, we don't have enough projects to keep all of our individual subject matter experts on projects. So what we do is we offer those out as individual subject matter experts for our customers who are looking to manage their own projects but need to supplement their team with certain subject matter experts, either functional or technical, to have successful projects. Then the real highlight of our services, as mentioned, with our remote enterprise solutions team, is managed services. And that includes application hosting with the Amazon Web Services. That includes break-fix support type services people sign up for, and that means service level agreements where we handle all the maintenance and the support of your application. We also do PUM management and some training and tutoring around that, where we help you manage your PUM images and also out of selective adoption. We also take on initiatives for custom development in the lab, and more recently we've added on disaster recovery services and PeopleSoft fluid development, and then testing as a service. Today we're going to be highlighting and specifically focusing on PeopleSoft security as a service. And for this part, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jay Chikara. Jay?
Good morning, everybody. So first I'll thank you, Peter, for the, thank you so much. So we will start with what are the needs of the customer of PeopleSoft security needs. I can categorize these needs into 9, 10, 11 needs. That there's a rising need on the PeopleSoft two-factor authentication, application access, which you guys are familiar with, from a page level, from a navigation level, who needs access to what. There's a backend security for the developers, which they need to read the access. There's another one where the hackers can go in, which is the integration broker layer, and that gets forgotten all the time. And then you have database access for your service accounts, for your vendors, for your DBAs, PeopleSoft Access Firewall. Many times your management, executive management may want to know who's browsing to which application, what time, what are my peak times, what are my times when I'm not busy. Query security, I'm assuming everybody's, all of you are familiar with to read the access, and you want to prevent the sensitive access. Data masking is on the rise, the privacy is on the rise, data encryption is on the rise, so that's a security need. And then the last is the developer security, that what type of security they should have. So there's some policies, there's some regulations around that, clearly defined for public entities, but not so much defined for private or for higher ed many times. We take care of all with our security service. And I want to start with talking about the life cycle of a user. And the life cycle of a user could be in a university, or even it can be an organization, starting from when a user, and think of that user who has a relationship to the organization, and that relationship could be just as an employee or a student or an applicant, depending on what type of organization it is. You need to give them access to do their job, right? So there's some basics access you need to provide by creating a profile, and not just PeopleSoft, but for all enterprise applications, for your network, for your email. Their profile needs to be created in all these applications. Then you want to give them a little enhanced access, that they may be billing specialists, they may be GL administrator, they may be doing account reconciliation. So there is a job-based access which you need to provide for them to do their job, right? In the PeopleSoft world, the navigation or the page does not work by itself. The data security element has to be there. What type of data they can update, what type of data they should see, right? So there's a requirement for the job duty-based data security, right? Or department-based, or based, keeping the separation of duty in mind. And then, during the organization, it's possible that employee will leave the organization, either by just leaving or retiring, right? Or the student will graduate to alumni, or they could be transferring to other job duties, right? It could be a real transfer, or it could be just a promotion within the same department. And this, one employee could stay for 20 years in one organization, one employee could stay 5 years in an organization, and they may come back as a rehire, right? That's possible too. All of these user lifecycle, we have automated all the functions, and starting from, so it's like an end-to-end automation, because they can come back to your organization. When a transfer happens, so you will see these dotted lines that this is very tricky, especially in higher ed and the public sector, because a lot of people are doing multiple jobs also. So it could not be just a transfer, but it's a shared responsibility of 50% of job A and the 50% of job B, and you want to make sure that those are effective dated, and those job-based access does not violate any of your audit regulations. The next one I want to talk about, the automation, going in detail, that what type of automation we have done. You're seeing some 10 types of automation here. I've already talked about the user provisioning, the creation, the termination, the enhanced access and transfers. You don't want to automate unless you have done cleanup and consolidation. PeopleSoft has been in the market for 20 some years. There's a lot to clean up, and we have some use cases to show. So I'll go over that. But that part is we have proprietary code where how we can do the cleanup and consolidation faster. Job duty-based security, I talked about that. It could be automated using a job duty, job code, position, or even a hybrid. The next one is a workflow-based security, that you may be giving access to somebody just for 30 days because so and so is on leave, right? So that type of enhanced access, temporary access, you want to award to an employee in a need, right? And then you want to take it back once that employee comes back, the primary employee comes back from the vacation. Just an example. The next one is the data security I talked about. So you have in department-based security, time and labor, cost centers, user preferences, business units, and then Campus Solution has functional security for the university. All of these are manual tasks, which I see organization to organization. We have automated this part. And then what you're seeing on the left side is the audit. So we have future webinars coming in June, July, August timeframe, where we will be discussing these in detail on the two-factor authentication, IDM, SOD, your penetration testing, and some automated monitoring controls. However, you can reach back to us at the end of the webinar. We will provide some email addresses. If you are interested to see a demo one-on-one on, just taking a deep dive in one of the topics, we'll be happy to provide that one-on-one demo also. Our service is automated, auditable, monitored, and maintained. All 4 or 5 criteria are built into our service. We talked about benefits. At the end of the day, somebody's going to ask, okay, what's my ROI here? I'm going to spend all this time and effort to automate. Well, what we have seen is that you will free up your security resources by 75%. What that means is that they'll be able to work on something which they've not been able to work on. The security has a lot of workload, and I'll share that workload with the use cases I'll show in just a while. And then the user's time, the user who is who's entering the ticket, who's going through approvals, who's following up with the security team, going through the myriad of roles and security, what type of security to be done, that can be reduced by 90%. So that's the benefit of automation you're going to see. Next, I want to talk about, I talked about cleanup and consolidation before, right? So this webinar focuses on automation benefits, the services of the automation, and a good security model. A good security model, which means it allows for minimal user administration. Meaning, if you see a trend, you automate that. That means that trend can be automated, and then we don't revisit that again. I mean, you want to visit it on a quarterly basis just to make sure that your automation is working okay. A good security model should also be integrated. Why? Because otherwise you will be managing security in each layer, and it will be very hard that some people will have more access in one application, but they will have less access in the other application. These days, there's a lot of emphasis on your identity management tools, right? MIM, OIM, FIM. There's so many in the market right now, but the most popular ones I've listed it here that people want to create. The user provisioning needs to happen in this layer instead of PeopleSoft layer, which it used to be before. And we used to just PeopleSoft, and we used to integrate with LDAP starting with version 8. Prior to that was all 2-tier type of passwords for user to authenticate. What I'm talking about integration here is that you manage it centrally rather than managing it in third-party systems. So the idea is that if you have a house and you want to lock your front door at the time when you're sleeping, right? You want to make sure your back door is locked also. You want to make sure your garage door is also locked, right? And you're providing the same access. So in the PeopleSoft world, what I'm trying to say is that what your front is the transactional applications in the HR, finance, or campus solution applications. You want to make sure your BI is also providing the same access, no more, no less. That's what I meant by integrated. Your model should be sustainable, scalable security model. Why? Because organization goes through a lot of reorgs. Sometimes some organization who are growing very fast, they have a reorg every 6 months sometimes, or every 1 year during the fiscal year. And because of that reorg, the security needs to be changed to sync up with that reorg. But you can't be spending time with every reorg, right? So your model should be defined in such a way that there is no hard-coded in the roles. The naming conventions should be there. So your objective should be that it should satisfy the audit requirements, the data privacy, the business productivity, right? And then the features are your naming convention should be so solid that it should be valid even for your future security model. And then I've listed some examples here. Then the time saving is another thing I want to talk about is that. So what we have the services is that we have predefined user access based on job duties, right? So that when a job duty will change, it will automatically sync up, right? We have scalable security model. So during a reorg, it will be easy to, there may not be a need to define the security need again. So that's where you will see the time saving. when you will spend some time upfront to create a scalable security model. Our cleanup approach, what we do is we go through an initial security assessment. We look at reduction of redundant, not needed access. We go through a lot of consolidation. We go through a cleanup. And what I mean is that we look under the hood. It's like it's like you buying a Honda car and you want to make sure it has a Honda engine. It doesn't have a Toyota engine in it, right? And many of the roles, sometimes I have seen it says something and it does something else when you start looking under the hood. When we go through this assessment, it's possible that we may end up creating new roles, new permissions, or we may rename them to a proper role name, because sometimes the role is doing the right thing, but the name does not justify what the job function of that role is. But the idea behind is to define the access by the job duties or the job functions, not by the title of the department, not by the title of the person. There may be some exceptions here and there. I mean, I'm not saying that's not the right approach, but what happens is it allows for a lot of cloning of the permission list, a lot of cloning of the roles, or unauthorized access that can happen. Like I've seen, for example, a budget director role assigned to 12 people who are not budget directors, right? And the role name should have been a budget specialist or a budget administrator, right? So that's just a rename example I want to give. It should be visible, clear. It should simplify your access approvals, and nothing should be hidden under title-based names. We also review the admin access, and a lot of contractors come in the organization, they leave, and they get admin type of access in non-prod system, which is also a copy of prod. They get some type of access in production also. So we review the admin access throughout. We make sure that they are accountable. Nobody's using a generic ID to log on into the system, and there's an accountability built in. There's a ownership built in, and the proper naming standards are being followed. Once the assessment is done, we go through an execution plan. And that plan is dependent on your security assessment, so we go by the risk. We follow the money, we follow the sensitive data, we follow the critical data. So if there's a social security number is a private data, or if, even the address. So in a university, even address could be, sensitive depending on if you join one and one information, two and two information together, that can become risky at that time, right? So we go through all of that. We define all the security standards. We define all the SOPs and SLAs. And then while we're going through the execution, we look for opportunities for auditing. We look for opportunities for monitoring, and whether they should be handled manual or automated if repeatable. I want to talk about it here, that don't try to automate everything. It's an 80-20 rule. You need to see that if something is repeatable, then you do want to automate that, right? If you try to automate every exception, then the ROI goes down. It's better to handle those exceptions with a standard procedure. So the cleanup, what we do is we use a lot of normalization techniques. I'm not going to go into explaining these pictures, but some of you may have seen in your schools that what these pictures mean is that we apply the techniques of normalization and the data mining and the business intelligence onto the security also. There's a lot of analytics involved. Sometimes you're dealing with millions of rows of data, because every organization may have 15,000, 20,000 employees or users. And when you combine that information with hundreds of roles and thousands of permission lists, it's a lot of data to go through. Let's talk about the use case. A use case I want to talk about is that which we recently worked on is the first use case is for public sector, and then the first one is for HR application. The number of users were 25,000, roles are 525, and I'm in this quadrant right now, so I know there's a lot of information to read, but this is the quadrant I'm reading from. And if you just look at the volume, is 5,000 permission lists. Number of tickets are about approximate 10,000. New users who are entering in the system is 1,600 on an annual basis. So it's a lot of workload if you look at it. If you try to do this manually, it's a lot of users you need, or there will be a lot of delays, a lot of security people you need. So you do want to look into, first you want to try to do the cleanup, and then you want to try to do the automation. And then you want to try to look into the separation of duties also, that do I have a person who can hire the employee, modify the salary, assign the benefits, and even cut the paycheck by running a payroll? And do I have the same person with a correction access modifying the salary back, right? I mean, I'm not saying that the fraud will happen, but there's a possibility of fraud or even mistakes that can happen. So when you have that kind of volume, things are hidden at that time. So our challenges were, it was a distributed security model, large volume, as I shared before, large volume of even the permissionless and users, a lot of cloning in this one. Why? Because PeopleSoft has been in the market for 20 some years, and many administrators come and go, many users come and go, many organization reorgs it goes through. So and people want access to do, I need access now, right? So there's always a need access that I need it now. So there's the similar thing. What happens is, the easiest thing is you go through a lot of cloning and you go through a lot of ambiguous access with a lot of similarity. So our solution was, we did the assessment as I shared before. We consolidated all, we're consolidating the permission list and roles. We're removing, we went through all this redundancy, not needed access. We applied the analytical and normalization methods. One thing I'll talk about is that don't try to do a tops-down analysis, but do a bottoms-up analysis, because things are hidden at the bottom, not at the top. And the top will say that this is what a role does, this is what a user does, this is the user is in this department, but you want to put two and two together by doing a bottoms-up analysis. And then you want a hybrid approach also, but mostly it's bottoms-up analysis. And then there are some other things where we applied the solution is that, so we're basically going through a full cleanup, separation of duty. This is still going on, this effort is still going on, and we're halfway through it. And the benefit is going to be a secured enterprise, identify and close all risk and loopholes, and we'll be able to meet the compliance, or the client will be able to meet the compliance and audit regulations. And there will be a fast access assignment. And the bigger benefit is, once you've gone through all the cleanup, now you can automate on the top of the cleanup. Next, I want to talk about a higher ed. So I talked about the public sector. Let me talk about a higher ed. Higher ed, if you know, they have a lot of applications, including portal. They have HR, finance, campus solutions, and some have integrated solutions. Some have not integrated solutions. So the security is sitting in each layer, and they don't talk to each other. So proper integration may not be there. So I've seen both types of cases. This example talks about 25,000 users, and these could be students, these could be administrative offices from financial aid, registrar or student financial office or bursar office, or but 5,000 employees. And then the student workers are separate. The student workers are, so in higher ed, you will see that a lot. The number of student workers come and go, and it's like every 3 months, they change. Why? Because they get internship opportunities at other clients also, or their project was only for 3 months. So our challenge here was a lot of roles, a lot of tickets, and we went through the same cleanup, a lot of distributed security model, ambiguous access, a lot of cloning, too much correction access. Everybody in the world had correction access. So we went through a cleanup, then we went through an end-to-end automation, and our access was defined by job duties with an organization relationship and an integrated access. So meaning that we were managing security at the end of the day, at the end of this project, was managing the security from one layer rather than managing it from campus, HR, finance, but also integrated the third-party applications too, not just PeopleSoft, but even mapping the security for the other third party. So then the security, what happens is it's streamlined after the consolidation. So I'm not going to go read through line by line here, but I've spoken about that it was a full cleanup, not just from the front end, but also from the back end, looking at security from all angles, not just from users and roles. You want to look at integration broker, you want to look at back-end access, front-end access, department security trees, query trees, integration broker, user ID, password, certificates. I mean, there's a lot to security than just users and roles. The benefit was secured enterprise, automation benefits, right? I mean, the assignment was 90% time savings, and these are real time savings. When I'm talking about time saving, these are user time, security time, all inclusive. So what did we learn? What we learned was, and I'll talk about from both example, is the benefits of the automation. My learning was that what I saw was the reduction of the ticket volume. That's the first thing I saw. The second was the fewer complaints. Before I used to have a lot of complaints, and then the error reduction. Because it's automated, it's pre-approved, you don't have to go through over again and again, and it's a standard. You will see a lot of error reduction that everybody got access based on their job duty. The next thing is what I learned was the security team, which was very busy, now they could focus on quality designs for their new modules, access reviews, assisting in audits and compliance, some niche work, penetration testing, partnering with information security office, looking at from a separation of duty point of view, because previously they were buried into all these volume of roles and tickets. And then the next one is the integrating with third party and IDM. Our recommendation is do not try to automate on an unclean data. Otherwise, a blunder can happen. I'm saying this from experience because I've seen it. And then the next one is you want to automate after you have gone through the cleanup and consolidation. And this is just to maximize your ROI. Otherwise, you will multiply your automation for all of these exceptions. Peter?
Thanks, Jay. So one of the things we want to point out here is kind of how our service packages work. As you can see, security as a service comes in, platinum, gold, and silver. And the one thing that's consistent across these, and it's a nice segue from our previous slide, is this automation cleanup. So, can't emphasize enough the importance of starting with the clean data. You can see all of our services. It all starts with that initial assessment and cleanup of the security roles in the entire ecosystem from a security perspective. Once we get into the next level of separation of duties, audit, and compliance, that's included in our platinum, gold levels, and it's not included in silver. Different levels of sophistication. If you think of it from the Gartner maturity model, we found that certain people needed certain things, and some people needed everything. So we've got the highest level of service, which includes everything from the two-factor authentication and alerts on down to the ongoing manual maintenance of the system, and then some scaling down of that in the gold and silver. We also have additional models that we can put together that are custom or hybrid for certain customers. So while we have these packages, again, we're flexible and our agility of the organization, we do offer custom packages for specific people based on your needs.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. So as Peter was describing before, I hope that today's session was educational, and also today's session was, that what can be done within the security world and why there's a need. There's a lot of data privacies on the rise. So we put this webinar together, keeping that in mind for all of you. We have some poll questions, which Peter was describing before. I'm going to launch these. I appreciate your time answering these. Please feel free to type in your questions. I know you guys cannot talk to us, but you can type in your questions. We were targeting to finish this webinar in 30 minutes, and we're right on that top time. The next 15 minutes, we can do an interaction with us on all of these poll questions and all of these Q&A. So you will see something on your screen that when I will be releasing these polls, and I have some few questions, and they will be lasting for 15-20 seconds.
So as Jay starts to release the poll questions, again, your feedback's greatly appreciated here. We're just going to dialogue a little bit around kind of our approach. Jay and I looked at this webinar today as the first bite at the apple and looking at PeopleSoft automation and security. The next several bites of the apple are going to be a breakdown of certain specific components within that. So Jay, do you want to highlight some of those additional webinars that we're going to be doing as folks go through the questions and answer? And then again, we'll have a Q&A session.
Okay, sure, that's a good idea. So while people are going through, they're answering these polls. Today we talked about the number A, what you see on the top is the automation of access controls after the cleanup, we will have a separate webinar on separation of duty, and we have a plug-and-play software. And this automation software, which I talked about, is a plug-and-play software. So let me close this poll and release the next one. Okay, so I'm releasing the next one, and then I'll continue to talk. The next, I was talking about plug and play. The automation of access controls, it takes about, it's going to save 80% of the time because it's pre-configured software, and it's just a matter of deploying it and then configuring it based on how your job codes, job positions, all of those are set up. So it takes about 20% of the time. So within 2-3 weeks of deployment, that will be ready. The second thing I want to talk about in the webinar is the separation of duties, audit and compliance and monitoring controls. So SOD, we have a plug and play software for that also. That webinar will be coming in June, July. What that concentrates on is the looking at from the eyes of an auditor, looking at from the eyes of an information security officer, or even from an accountant, or from a CFO point of view, that do we have proper segregation of duties defined, right? It's still collecting responses for the next one. And then we have an I2 factor, and I named it as I2 factor. It's an intelligent two-factor authentication, that we have a proprietary software which we have built in-house, where not only not at login level, but even at a sensitive data level, it will apply smart, intelligent two-factor authentication. Meaning if you're logging from Starbucks, and it will ask you for a two-factor authentication. So let me close the poll for the next one, and I'm going to release the next question. Is okay. The next question, while I'm releasing that, and then we have a lot of auditing, monitoring controls. If a mistake can happen, somebody can go from the back end, assign an access. Our system is constantly not only monitoring it, but also preventing a breach. So if a breach kind of thing is happening, we will not only stop the user to get into your system, we will alert so I'm kind of giving a synopsis on all of that, but those webinars will talk in detail that what those mean. It's basically, it alerts your user team, security team, it alerts it prevents the breach. So those are the things that are going to happen. And in the ongoing manual maintenance, I mean, you know that organization goes through reorgs, new module implementation. So that's the manual maintenance. Or you could be, consolidating your organization, splitting the organization, and then it's just a review at that time that is our security model is sufficient or not. So those webinars will be coming in June, July. So let me close this this one, and then I will release one more question, and then we will have a Q&A. And we have a handout also. I will be releasing that handout and of course, like we said, that we will be sending a recorded webinar of this, right, later on through the email to all the participants who registered. Just want to see that we're respectful of your time. I don't see any question posted yet, so I know people are busy answering the poll questions. Okay.
So just a little history for everybody as we finish up the polls. ERPA, again, created a lot of our processes were created as accelerators for our managed projects team, and they were developed in our lab in Dublin, Ohio. And as we went out and discussed these certain things that we're incorporated into our projects, our customers were saying, well, why don't you offer that as a service? So a lot of these things that we've created were project accelerators or enhancers that we created in our lab as a part of managed services to alleviate issues and this high volume of tickets related to security and user provisioning. So we just want to kind of point that out. And the reason we brought it to market and we're talking about it as a service is because our customers and people, this resonated with them, these challenges they're having, security compliance and audits. And just, sometimes we put together a flow chart or a swim lane diagram showing how the provisioning and the user access is done, and it looks like spaghetti. So that's part of the assessment, doing an as-is analysis and then cleaning that up and as a starting point. So let's go ahead and I think we can close the polls. And, again, we've been open for questions, but please let us know any questions. If you happen to be just shy and don't want to ask on the open webinar, we'd be happy to have a one-on-one discussion with you. And again, it doesn't always have to be a paid engagement. We're happy to come to the table and discuss our processes and or the things that we find and what you should pay attention to. And that's a part of what we're presenting today and what we're going to continue to provide in the series of discussions.
Right.
No more questions. I'm going to open it up and look.
So there's a handout here. I hope that all of you can see the handout to download it. If not, you can go to our website, and under
we
that,
have a question here.
We do?
Yeah. What's the architecture of this? Meaning, how do a customer deploy this security as a service?
So the architecture behind that is all within the PeopleSoft. That's the answer. And the customer, we will basically come in, do an assessment, and we will deploy this on your site. It's an on-prem solution. It is not a cloud solution. It's an on-prem solution, but the services are to support services as need on a need basis, the ongoing manual maintenance. But it's a one-time deployment.
Does that answer your question? If not, you can go ahead and post some additional clarification and we'll provide more detail. So that's the only question I'm seeing in the queue now. Again, we don't want to truncate this, give everybody a chance to ask any questions you have. I know we've had a few people drop off, but
one of the reasons we chose PeopleSoft as the architecture is that there were some, because you have a lot of web logic layer, you have a lot of we had to consider the two-factor authentication. We had to consider the because if somebody, I've seen some tools in the market where they're reading the log files. Reading the log files and then taking an action on it is the problem has already happened. You want a layer which is sitting on the top of your security model, monitoring all layers, app server, web server, everything, to prevent the breach. And if you take it outside with a tool like, let's say, Logarithm, and you're reading the log using Splunk and everything, with that activity, malicious activity or fraud activity, whatever that is, that has already taken place, right? So this is the reason that the architecture was chosen within the PeopleSoft itself. However, our architecture can integrate with other third-party applications. Third-party applications that, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, well, again, to Jay's point, is Oracle BI applications, for those of you who deploy Oracle BI applications or OBIEE ecosystems, we can actually apply the security as a service to those in addition to the ERP system. So I think Jay's going to say next, we have the capabilities to deploy this for Workday and other technologies. We have to stick to our core in PeopleSoft, but we do have models that we've created based on existing customer demand. Because at this point in the continuum, we'll call it, we have customers that have PeopleSoft and Workday. So they're asking us again, and we're trying to meet the demand of our customers.
Right. And that's a very good point, Peter. And then I know we have 1 minute left before we finish this, is that security is a mindset. It is once you have the solid principles ready, you can apply to anything. We have plans in place to apply this at a identity management level. So if somebody wants to govern their security model for all enterprise apps from identity management instead of PeopleSoft, or it depends on what they choose to centrally manage. The reason we're mentioning PeopleSoft here is that because you want to go where your source of record is. And your source of record could be Oracle Cloud. I know these are new applications in the market and they are still not matured yet for companies to have full enterprise solutions for Oracle, Workday HR, Workday Finance, and all of these, and they have integrated applications. And when I talk integration, is that you could have PeopleSoft HCM, but Oracle Cloud, you may have only compensation module, right? So our software does that integration. It maintains that security layers between both, and you'll be able to centrally manage that. So I know it's time. If no other question, we can end it. And the last slide I wanted to show is if you want a separate demo tailored towards your organization, you can reach to this email address, webinars@erpagroup.com, and we can have a deep dive into a topic. I know the security we have about 50 deliverables. I did not show the list of those 50 deliverables in the cleanup alone. And in automation alone, there are many deliverables, so we had to show few. So we can take a deep dive into that on the webinars@erpagroup.com. And those emails will come.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.